Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was in North Korea last week to finalize talks on denuclearization agreements from the meeting between President Donald Trump and leader Kim Jong-un. It appears the meeting did not go as planned, as the regime accuses the U.S. of a gangster-like mindset, warning of yet another tragedy if negotiations collapse. Mr. Pompeo has responded, saying that if the U.S. was a gangster, so is the rest of the world, as it had also demanded that North Korea dismantle its nuclear weapons program.
Mr. Pompeo's comments were made during his meeting with counterparts from the other U.S. allies in Asia, Japan and South Korea, who both reaffirmed their commitment to implementing sanctions against North Korea to achieve complete denuclearization. Pompeo later told a news conference that North Korea had reaffirmed its commitment to complete the denuclearization during his visit. Regarding the North's statement accusing America of making gangster-like demands, Pompeo said it was the unanimous decision of the UN Security Council.
I am determined to achieve the commitment that President Trump made, and I am counting on Chairman Kim to be determined to follow through on the commitment that he made. And so if those requests were gangster like they are, the world is a gangster, because there was a unanimous decision at the UN Security Council.
The remark contradicted the hope with which Mr. Pompeo arrived to fill in details on how to dismantle the North's nuclear program and recover the remains of U.S. troops missing from the Korean War. At the airport, he had met Kim Yong-chol, who played a key role with Pompeo in arranging the summit between Mr. Kim Jong-un and President Donald Trump in Singapore. They later talked for only a couple of hours as he made his first overnight stay in North Korea. By Saturday, the U.S. and North Korean officials had set up working groups to deal with what they called nitty-gritty stuff, including validation of efforts to achieve denuclearization. Pompeo left the negotiations venue to make a secure phone call to update President Donald Trump on the talks. Just before he left North Korea for talks with counterparts in Japan, Pompeo told reporters he had made progress on almost all the central issues in talks with North Korea, including setting a timeline for its denuclearization, but work remained to be done. He said the two sides agreed to hold discussions on July the 12th on the repatriation of remains of Americans killed in the 1950 to 1953 Korean War, and also discussed modalities for the destruction of a missile engine testing facility. Pompeo said he spent a lot of time discussing a denuclearization timeline and declaration of the North's nuclear and missile facilities.
We had many hours of productive conversations. These are complicated issues, but we made progress on almost all of the central issues. Some places a great deal of progress, other places there's still more work to be done. We now have a meeting in Panmunjom set up for July 12th that could move by one day or two, where there will be discussions between the folks responsible for the repatriation of remains will take place at the border, and that process will begin to develop over the days that follow.
That was until North Korea said its firm, steadfast resolve to give up its nuclear programs may falter, citing the U.S. demand for unilateral denuclearization. The North's official KCNA news agency said the result of talks with a delegation headed by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was extremely troubling, accusing it of insisting on complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization. The statement read on KCNA said, "The fastest way to achieve a nuclear-free Korean peninsula was through a phased approach under which both sides took steps at the same time."
And here are other discussions in diplomatic circles. The UN resident and humanitarian coordinator Anders Pedersen says almost all the Syrians who fled an army offensive in the southwest to gather in a free trade zone at the Jordanian border have gone back into Syria. Several thousand people had congregated near the Nasib Jabba crossing. Only about 150 to 200 remained there. The United Nations says the Russian-backed offensive against insurgents has uprooted more than 320,000 people in the past 2 weeks, the biggest exodus of the 7-year war. Around 600,000 have sought shelter near the border with Jordan, and thousands more at the frontier with the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights.
The situation right now, though, of course, remains very difficult, and it's of huge concern to us. We keep on repeating the message by the Secretary General. We keep repeating that we need an immediate cessation of hostilities. We need a political process to find a solution to the crisis, and we need a humanitarian pause so that we can go in with our convoys as we have done in the past.
The leaders of Ethiopia and Eritrea on Sunday met in the Eritrean capital in a historic summit that could herald the end of a near 20-year military standoff. Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki warmly welcomed Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed when he landed at Asmara Airport before the leaders headed to the presidential palace. The meeting is the first of its kind in 2 decades between the leaders of the two neighbors and bitter rivals in the Horn of Africa. They fought a war in the late 1990s in which around 80,000 people died. The unexpected rapprochement with Eritrea has won international plaudits for Abiy, who took office in April and announced last month he would honor the terms of a peace deal after the 1998-2000 war. The 41-year-old is pushing other bold reforms to open Ethiopia up to the outside world after decades of security-obsessed isolation. European President Jean-Claude Juncker says the EU executive would make a new proposal on how to protect the European Union's external borders in September. Visiting Vienna for the start of Austria's 6-month presidency of the European Union, Juncker said on Friday that the Commission would propose to bring forward by a few years to increase the number of policemen working at the border. The comments came after Austria's Chancellor Sebastian Kurz said he hoped EU leaders would reach an agreement on strengthening the border agency Frontex at an informal meeting in Salzburg. Juncker also warned that more tension between member states on migration will take place as long as a reform of the Dublin regulation on asylum is not completed, while acknowledging the difficulty of reaching compromises of such issues. The regulation notably states that the country where the asylum seeker enters the EU is responsible for handling his or her asylum request. That's it on the program this week. Please keep your comments coming. I'm always looking forward to them. I am Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.